In this special episode of your favorite series, Anthony Perrier does some shitty mechanic work. You're going to see Anthony do some crappy mechanics. You're going to see him succeed.
Honestly, I'm happy. Honestly, I'm really happy.
You're going to see him fail.
Oh, that's really annoying. Damn, I got a metal splinter in my finger.
You're going to see him talk, but you won't hear him because he forgot to turn on the mic again. But most importantly, you're going to see him working on a Jaguar. And not just any Jaguar. This Jaguar!
Hello, hi, I hope you're doing well. My name is Anthony Perrier and my job is being a YouTuber for a few years now. You can see behind me what I love. It's crazy projects. And you should know that some time ago I did this crazy project. You loved this crazy project. For those who saw the videos, it's simply a Peugeot 400 6-station wagon diesel 2-liter HDI that I decided to lift and to put on big wheels, big tires. But basically that's where it stops. There's a full paint job with Montana paint. And I think it was one of the projects I enjoyed the most out of all my projects because it was simple to do and not very expensive to make. And unfortunately, this project ended up in the feed of another YouTuber named Designer Otto. So he contacted me and said, "Dude, I have a project to build a lifted rally raid car. Are you interested?" I love a good challenge. I love mechanics and I love cars, so I said, yes, I'd be happy to. What is it? Yeah, what kind of car is it? Tell me. The auto designer, it's a Jaguar XJ40. Why? So if you don't know the auto designer, he's a really nice guy who talks about really interesting topics. And by the way, I invite you to go check out what he does by clicking on the link right here at the top right. And, well, he's not a mechanic, and I think that's why he chose an XJ40. Because I think he doesn't know how beautiful these cars are, sure, but also how much of a piece of junk they are. So I know that among you, statistically, there are definitely some Jaguar enthusiasts. Yes, it happens. It's a rare disease, fortunately, but it happens. Now, I'm saying this in a bit of a joking way, just to get a reaction from you, but honestly, these cars are packed with qualities. They're also packed with flaws. But overall, my role during the next few weeks, months, years, I don't know, decades, I'm not really sure, is going to be to prepare this vehicle in rally raid mode. No, actually, I'm really joking about it, but honestly, I'm really happy to be part of this project. I have a lot of ideas. The problem is, these are ideas I got thanks to the 406 because I know how I lifted it, I know why I did it, because it's a car I know. The big problem with this Jaguar is that I don't know it. And I already know there are a lot of problems. For example, at the back of this car, there are electronically controlled suspensions. No, they're not controlled. Basically, the car's stance, the adjustment of the rear height of the car, is managed hydraulically. I don't know exactly how it works, we'll find out together in this video. But basically, at the back of the car, depending on a whole bunch of completely unknown parameters, well, the height of the car adjusts automatically. When I say it's junk, I'm serious. You know it'll be tough as soon as you open the hood. Look at how tiny I am next to all this crap, damn. There's stuff everywhere, right? You can really feel that this is the beginning of big luxury cars with electronics. Because actually putting electronics in your car at that time was super cool because it was new. So they put it everywhere. But still, we've got a pretty nice engine here. It's a 3.6-liter inline 6-cylinder. Joking aside, honestly, I don't have that many instructions for now. As for preparing this car, I have a few sketches and diagrams that Konstantin from Auto Designer made for me. But other than that, I don't really know where I'm going. I just know that, yeah, we definitely want to raise the vehicle. There are also several other improvements to make, like making the brakes and cooling system more reliable, since I assume he wants to experiment with it. We're still dealing with a ship that's 5 meters long and 3 tons 18. Anyway, from how it feels when I handle it, it's 3 tons 18. And yeah, the goal is to put big wheels on it, but I don't know what size wheels, so all of that is stuff to calculate, things to look into. But let's say what worries me is the biggest part of the job, the lift. Now, the goal is to get it on the lift. Damn, that's cool. Listen to that door sound. That's something. Oh yeah. So now, I'm about to lift the Jaguar for the very first time. I haven't looked underneath yet. I don't know what it looks like. So now is when I find out if it was a big mistake to accept this project or not. Because it's now that I realize, well, it's fine. I just need to make 12 spacers of a certain size. Then I screw them in and the car is lifted. Or that's when I realize it's much more complicated than that I have to cut the body, weld the body, do a bunch of things I really don't want to do. But that's okay. We're at this point and the project will be awesome, so we have to do it one way or another. Well, first, what will really determine how difficult this thing is mostly how the running gear is made. We're going to answer our question now. Let's go. Oh, now I like that. No, I don't like that, but I don't understand how it's made. Wait. We agree that a cradle is always screwed onto a frame. The cradle can't be the frame itself. We agree on that. Oh man, what a mess. Oh boy. So wait, don't get impatient. First, I need to understand how it works. Then I'll show you. Because right now, there's too much information. There are screws for... It looks like a Mercedes. There are tie rods and arms and everywhere.
You like listening to Anthony. You're going to like this even more when you hear the next part, where that idiot thought it was a good idea to film with an iPhone, and apparently without a mic. He doesn't like the iPhone because it messed everything up. And once again, I'm the one who has to explain his screw-ups. And it's really starting to piss me off.
So, honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's already getting on my nerves. But hey, the good news, like I told you, is that the engine is mounted on the subframe and the running gear is also attached to the subframe. That means we lower everything and nothing will be under stress, except for the steering rack. You see, if we lower everything as one piece, the only real problem is going to be that. Once we've lowered the whole front of the engine, we'll have to lower the back of the engine. With this, it's pretty easy. We make 4 spacers, we take 4 longer bolts, bam, 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 done. We lower it like that. 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters, 5 centimeters, we do whatever we want. That's not a problem. There you go. The real first problem is going to be there. So the advantage is that everything is in one piece, you see. The problem is that the subframe is mounted like this. So that means we would have to take this plate here, which is attached with the 3 bolts, and extend it. We'll manage to make it 3 centimeters lower, 4 centimeters lower. Annoying. Especially since this part we can modify it, but on the other side we can't put the bolt anywhere else, because that's the frame rail. So unless we weld something onto the frame rail with a whole X centimeters lower, it's doable. But you have to keep in mind that the car won't be road legal anymore. We won't be allowed to drive it on the road. That's important to remember. Welding onto the frame rails is really tricky. We're considering lowering the engine and gearbox, which drops everything, but then the drive shaft becomes totally misaligned. So you also have to lower the rear so that the whole chassis and engine are at the same height and only the body sits a bit higher. And then it all comes down to the rear subframe. The rear subframe, here we have a front mounting point, so that's pretty easy. We put a spacer between the subframe and the body, and we put the same spacer here at 2 or 3 points to lower it. That's doable. And the rear of the subframe, that's going to be here. That's it. The rear support of the complete subframe with its arms. I think there's nothing else holding our subframe. Yeah, that's it. That's definitely the part. And then, well, we'll also need to make spacers here. In theory, it's doable, but it'll be a real pain. I'll study it, write everything down, and think it through. You saw my immediate reaction to the Jaguar's chassis. It's doable, but messier, and there's less space to work than on the 406. The 406 was much easier than this. Alright, see you later. Wow. So, just like that, looking behind me, you might think that today I did absolutely nothing. It's our second day working on this car, which is actually the first real day of work. Since yesterday, apart from putting it on the lift, I did absolutely nothing. Today, the crucial step was to take this apart, and I managed to do it. Now, the question you must be asking yourself is, what is this? Well, this, you see, is one of the mounts for the front subframe. And I'm really happy I managed to take it apart because this is going to be the first step of our lift. Let me explain how it works. So, as you can see, I took off the wheel, but that's pretty obvious. I think you could have noticed that on your own. You can see that I took off the shock absorber here. I unscrewed it from the top part at the strut mount, which already allowed me to free up the front suspension at this point. And then, actually, there was this little part that I took off with these kinds of rubber bushings here, and it was sitting exactly like this on the subframe. And then you can see that the 2 little rods here sticking out from the bushing were inserted into the body of the car. At the top, on the engine compartment side, there were 2 big bolts, but I can't show them to you since they're up there. Besides, I can't lower the car anymore, because actually to lower my subframe, I had to secure the thing. Because believe it or not, a 3.6 liter inline 6 is a lot heavier than a 2 liter HDI. So I had to secure it with the engine support on top and the pit jack underneath. I almost died already. Why? Because even after the mount was unscrewed here, I still had to unscrew the rear subframe mount with this huge bolt. By the way, with 29mm heads, since we're working on an English car, the sizes are odd because it's metric. After I removed that part, everything nearly fell apart and dropped by 3 or 4 centimeters. So technically the subframe should stay at this height now. The idea is to measure the center-to-center distance here on my part, have a kind of block machined out of steel or aluminum, whatever, that will fit in there, with 2 inserts sticking out the other side of our block to fit into the chassis. And actually, it's the height of that block that will determine the height of our lift. So I think it'll be about 4 centimeters, maybe 5 centimeters, but really that's the absolute maximum because actually a lift is done in several stages. First, we start with the car lift, which we're discussing now. The second step is the tires. And yes, for example, here on the 406 Safari, we made metal lifts of 40 millimeters, which is 4 centimeters. And then, the tires are also much bigger than the original tires, which allowed us to gain another 3 or 4 centimeters, so that's a total lift of 7 or 8 centimeters. That's what you have to work with on the Jaguar. Once we have the rims, we can calculate the tire diameter and see if we need to cut the fenders, etc. So here, the first step is crucial. It's going to be determining what height we want above our bushing. And based on that, it will determine the height of absolutely all our spacers. And so, indeed, here we're going to have to change the height of this thing, because if we don't, well, our front axle is going to collapse forward. And that's not the goal, that's not what we want. The goal is to keep exactly the same geometry as the original, so we'll have to find a way to move this hole down by X centimeters. And I'm not looking forward to that.
The next day, or the next day in English.
Hello, it's Monday, and as you probably know, before Monday, there's the weekend. So I took advantage of my weekend to do some tuning. That's right. Basically, I took this thing apart and I said I would take some measurements. Well, I did take some measurements and I made a little 3D prototype, or rather it's being made right now. I'll still explain to you how it works. Basically, this side is attached to the subframe and this side goes into the side member, which is about here, and then it's screwed in from the top. You see here inside we have a thread which allows us to sandwich the side member with this thing. But basically the idea was to come up with a small spacer, possibly made of aluminum, that would go on top of this. So it would fit onto these things and then fit again into the side member just to keep the spacers in place. I don't know if it's a good idea to machine everything from solid, but anyway, that's the idea I had. And I'll show you what the printer is making for me right now. Basically, on my desktop computer at home, I have SolidWorks and I made this thing. You see, I think you kind of get how it works. So, before validating it and sending it to Ulysses from UCMECA 26, well, I thought I'd make a little prototype with a 3D printer because I just discovered this brand new technology, Nobody knows about this new technology, I think. So yeah, I'm making this little thing. It's going to take a really long time because you see, it's been 30 minutes since it started and we're only at about 1%. Well, basically, you get it. I made this little prototype, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, there are still millions more to make for the whole car. I'll try to make as many as I can. I'm taking a lot of inspiration from the 406 Safari, since we used a similar process, just without prototypes, because my friends were much better at computer-aided design than I was. So I think we'll meet again in a few days when I have as many prototypes ready as possible. I don't feel like it.
Much later, but like way later. Like really, really, really way later.
The video started in December. Now it's April, so 2 months have passed. For 2 months, I didn't work on the Jaguar because I was busy with other cool projects, like the RS3 drift car behind me. I admit that's a really cool project. If you haven't heard of the project, I'll share the link in the description and at the top right of your screen. Check out this drift Mercedes. It's a cool project with great collaborations. Anyway, even though I haven't made physical progress on the Jaguar, a lot has happened, like for example, the lift spacers. Yeah. So the lift spacers, you probably remember, I made this thing with my 3D printer. It's really cool. It allowed me to get some measurements, get some ideas, and realize that this was actually pretty good. So I sent that over to Ulysses from UCMECA 26 and he came up with this. So basically, this is exactly the same thing, but made of steel instead of plastic, printed with a 3D printer, which will obviously be much better for supporting the weight of a Jaguar. So, he made 2 of them for the front subframe, and he also prepared all the other shims for all the other parts. The small bushings for the rear cross members, absolutely everything for the car. I'm really happy. And when I went to pick up my flywheel bolts for the 505, I was also able to buy all the bolts I needed. That is, the same bolts as the originals with the same codes as the originals but stronger, because most of the bolts are grade 12-9, so in terms of hardness you can't really get much better for regular people, so that's really cool. They're just like the originals but 4 4 centimeters longer to fit the spaces, which is really cool. I don't know if you're aware, but I've been getting really into 3D printing lately. If you're not following me on Instagram, I invite you to do so. Anthony.pdlv. I share some of my little creations live directly in my stories, but anyway, that's not the point. So now I have pretty much 100% of the measurements needed to make the latest spacers to lift the Jaguar, except for one. This bolt here is the one that holds the bushing in place, so it's the rear mount for my front subframe, my cradle, and all that stuff. And since I want to raise the car by 40 millimeters, I need to take this point here, the center of the bolt, and place it exactly perpendicular to the ground, 40 millimeters up here. Except what's pretty complicated is that here, it's completely rounded, we've got some weird angles and so on. And doing the math to really calculate the drop point for the 40 millimeters, that's not my thing. However, what I am good at is 3D printing. So here I made a part that has a hole here with the diameter of my screw, so 19.2 millimeters. And then here I made a hole of 10 millimeters, and the part is 15 millimeters high. And then here I put some weights, some universal joints from a 206. And on the other side I made a 3D printed sheet that fits the shape of my chassis. You see, we can see there's a curve here that I tried to follow. And basically the 10 millimeters is this. You insert it into the hole there. And why the weights? Well, so it acts like a plumb line. You see, that way, it's perfectly perpendicular to the ground. Then, you move your pencil forward until you find this little spot. So here, guys, this little black dot will be useful for measuring where the center of 19 millimeters will be, so I can put my original Jaguar screw through here into my 3D printed part. It was hard to explain since I was thinking as I spoke, but I'm happy with this idea. It's cool. Later, we ended up with this in our hands. You see, I made a nice little chamfered piece, all the works, with a 19.2 hole. It's perfect, and it fits perfectly with the shapes here. And it even stays in place against the hose. And you see, we have the original hole shifted 40 millimeters lower. It's great. So basically this would be a piece to weld. It's not finished yet. I'll explain it to you in a bit more detail when I have the actual physical part in my hands. Now anyway, what I plan to do is lower my entire front end by 40 millimeters. And I'm really looking forward to doing it. So now I have what I need to lower the front of my subframe by 40 millimeters and my gearbox mounts by 40 millimeters. So basically this thing will allow us to finish our front end. But I don't need it right away to start lowering the front end, but I do need the light. First of all, I did think about coming here to remove the rack bolt, because that's one of the things that worries me a little bit. In the sense that, yes, I'm going to lower everything by 40 millimeters, including the steering rack. And the problem is that it's going to pull on the steering column. And that's a bit of a pain, but, well, I'll deal with it later. For now, I just unscrewed it. Lowering everything by 40 millimeters won't be a problem. Yeah! Now, there's nothing holding the front end, the subframe from above. Come here, I'll explain it to you. Basically, what's happening is that here, as you can see, the shock absorber is loose, the front subframe is loose. Here, we just have the bolt holding it, and it's the same on the other side, just so everything doesn't fall apart. Anyway, the engine is still attached to the gearbox, which is still attached to the drive shaft, so it can't fall. Well, yeah, of course, the brake hoses. I was like, there's no way I can fit my 40 millimeter spacer here. Here, it's just not possible, there's no room. Yeah, so what we're going to do is cut the hose. Yeah, it's way harder than I thought. Wow, I mean, it's really tough. Yeah, it fits right in.
Yeah, Anthony. Why are you cutting the hose when you could have just taken it off and replaced it?
The car's about 40 years old, so I won't touch the hoses. Now it'll be much easier to take apart. I could just use a small ratchet to take off the caliper, you know what I mean? Instead of messing around with a flare nut wrench that's just going to mess up and all that. Anyway, now I'm going to let it drain a little. It's splashing all over the floor of my workshop. There's a cardboard box lying around. That'll do the job. Hey! And there we go. There you go. But yeah, right now, basically, at least in theory, that doesn't bother me anymore. What's left? ABS sensor, I don't know what that is. Brake pad wear. Well, I might not be able to avoid that. Maybe there's a connector somewhere. Well, I'll just unplug that however I can. And then, in theory, there shouldn't be anything left stopping me from lowering the front axle. At least on paper. The brake hose problem is sorted out. Now, the second problem was the cooling fan... What's it called? The viscous coupling. Fan...
You can't even talk.
The problem is he was trapped in the plastic thing. And The problem is that when I was lowering the engine, well, the viscous coupling was pressing against that plastic cage, which is normally just there to guide the air from the viscous coupling to the radiator, you know, to really get the heat out of the radiator. The problem is it was completely stuck. There was a conflict of interest. Sorry about the original parts, but if I pull a bit, it shouldn't bother me now. That's the good news.
After that shaky explanation, he decided to rip out that piece of English plastic, as old and tired as the average Jaguar owner. But since Anthony is a professional audiovisual director, you can see him in this low-angle shot, but you have absolutely no idea what he's doing. It's terrible.
Well, now that all those pieces of plastic aren't bothering us anymore, I can lower my engine with this. You see, the engine is only held by a strap, and the two rear mounts of the subframe, and the gearbox, and so on. But now I can lower the front of the engine, and you see there's nothing in the way of the viscous coupler anymore, and that's pretty cool. Okay? It's still going down, always going down. The lowering is in progress. Maybe I should stop now. At some point, I won't have any more clearance. So now, well, yeah, we've got space between the subframe and the body. Very good news. Now, I'm going to lift the car, put the pit jack under the front subframe, and remove the two rear bolts. Will everything collapse like the gearbox? No, since it's securely bolted to the engine, there's nothing to worry about. So, remove the two big bolts, lower the engine and the gearbox, slide this wedge in here, lift it back up and bolt it. Without the rear bolts, gearbox mount, lower it. Right now, the engine isn't really supported by much anymore. So, in theory, if I remove the two bolts, I gain some height, I slide in my wedges, and maybe I can just bolt it back on like that directly. I'm not really sure. I might also need to remove the two shock absorbers on each side since they're mounted in the bushing so they can't move as needed. And since the subframe is tilting completely forward, we can't put it back in the hole anyway, or even line it up with the hole. There's definitely some thinking to do here. But now, I'm really starting to enjoy this because we're starting to see some results. Here, you can already see that the hub is really low compared to the original arch. What's up with the steering rack? Great, it's out of the steering column, so I won't have to struggle with it now. Actually, now I've reached a point where, after thinking it over, I have to take apart a bunch of things. I can't just lower the front subframe to lower the engine. It's not possible because the front and back are connected, and there are a few spots I hadn't noticed. So, I'm sorry, for now the video is a bit all over the place, but once I have a plan of attack, some ideas, you know, that will follow each other chronologically, it'll go much better. What do you think, huh? About the chronology? You don't care at all, do you? Oh wow, what a beautiful dog. I'm going to take off the exhaust line. Actually, I don't have a choice here. Yeah. It's a bit messy for now and I'm sorry about that. But basically, if you want to understand everything, for now, the front subframe can be lowered. But I can't lower the front subframe because my gearbox mount here is going to keep me from lowering it. If I want to unscrew the gearbox mount, I first need to remove the exhaust. Otherwise, it can't drop 4 centimeters because the exhaust is in the way. But the exhaust is attached to the engine, so it should go down. But actually no, because if I lower the gearbox here, then it will be able to go down. But I won't be able to lower this thing because actually I hadn't noticed, but here, just like on the Mercedes, we have a drive shaft bearing. So there's a bushing with a bearing over there in the middle. And the problem is, well, if I want to remove this thing, I have to unscrew this, but to unscrew this, I also have to remove the exhaust here. And then, well, there's also the drive shaft flex disc. So actually, what I'd like to do first is to split the vehicle into two parts. The front and the back. For now, as you can see, it's two connected from the front to the back. If I lower the front, it'll put pressure on the back or vice versa. Now I have to remove the entire exhaust system. At least it won't bother me anymore. We'll see what to do next with the exhaust. Do we make a new exhaust system? Do we modify this one? Do we keep the catalytic converters? I don't know. I don't know anything for now. All I know is the rear axle and differential are going to be a pain for me. So I need to disconnect the rear flex disc and have the drive shaft, gearbox and engine all as one unit, basically. Anyway, let's get started. I'm removing the exhaust line and we'll see. The exhaust line, not the gearbox. I'm tired. Come on! Yeah, no, it's not very heavy. Now we can see more clearly, including the drive shaft, which is good. I want to disconnect it at the back, but I still need to remove this exhaust first.
In the next sequence, Anthony's mic rightly decided it was unbearable to listen to and glitched out like never before. It went pa-pa-pa, pa-pa-pa, kark. So now, the professional voiceover takes over to explain to you that he was probably talking about his life, saying that he dropped the rest of the exhaust line and that it was very difficult. and we pick up at the moment when he realizes that the lowered subframe is no longer aligned with the body. And what annoys him is that, it's impossible to put the new spacer between the subframe and the body because, well, it's leaning forward. So, the holes are no longer aligned at all.
I think removing this will give me more flexibility to insert my spacer and reassemble everything. Even if it's not fully screwed in, that's fine, as I'll have some leeway. And anyway, it's being held up by the transmission jack, I want to say. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and put in my gearbox spacers. On paper, it could work. No, but I'm aware that what I'm about to do is a bit dangerous because at this point there's absolutely nothing holding my engine. At the same time, I don't really see what else I could do, you know? If I leave the gearbox mount and remove these two big bolts, the whole thing is going to tip forward. That's a good thing, but at the same time, not at all. Because with the alignment pins on my mounts and my mount spacers, it won't line up. Well, I don't think it'll line up because even now it's not lining up. And how? By the way, why isn't it lining up? It doesn't make sense. How come it's not lining up anymore? There's something I'm missing. Yeah, I'm thinking about the assembler now because even I don't understand what's happening right in front of me. But the assembler trying to piece together what's happening here without being present. Good luck, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, you see, that's what I don't get. Why isn't that damn peg lined up with the hole anymore? Same thing in the back. There's something I'm missing. If I take out these two big screws here, will I have enough play to fit this in? I don't know. Let's see. Honestly, I really have some doubts, first of all about my safety. Normally, it holds here. So if this thing falls apart, it means I did something wrong. Wait, I should be able to take out this screw here. Okay, I saw the cradle move a little, but not more than... There you go. So here, I have a pit jack here and a strap up top. The problem is, the strap is going to be a pain in the ass. Because when I want to lower everything, I'll have to climb up to take off the strap. What a stupid idea. I'm not a mechanic. That's the last screw holding everything together. Oh, I was scared shitless, damn. Well, now the block is lined up, so that really was the problem. Oh man, I'll take the time to show you. When I saw that the impact gun was starting to struggle taking that thing off, I thought there must be a lot of force on it. So here, you see my little shim, -40. The hole will stay there. This will be welded here. Screw here. That's pretty good. I'm really happy with it. So here, I need to lower this a bit to fit my little 40 shim in there. Because right now, I'm not sure it'll fit. Anyway, I'll need to get the ladder to put in the longer screws. Because yes, longer screws. So yes, it's definitely M8 that's holding the... Yeah, don't worry. So after that, either I'll weld this to the body to make sure it's really strong, or I don't know, my shim. Stool, huh? Because I don't know why I put everything so high, actually. There's not much room left to fit my shim. What if I lower this? Yeah, it's going down. The strap is starting to make noises, but it's going down. What's it saying now? Oh, wow. Now I've got plenty of space. Check this out. Careful, we're about to do some stunts together. So my shim, I get on my stool, and now I should be able to fit it in. Yeah, this is going to be great. So can I do this for you live, just so you understand how this mess works? Who took the measurements? Was it me? Yeah, I think it was me. Alright, there's a small difference between this one and the 3D printed shim, or maybe since the 3D print is plastic, I forced it a bit and it fit. That's a possibility. Damn! Well, in the end, I didn't die. I used the Dremel a bit and it fit perfectly. Look how happy I am with the result. Oh yes, it really fit perfectly. I'm super happy. So now I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. Then we can put the subframe back on. Why is it so high? Is there a problem? I have no space here for my spacer, but on the other side I had plenty. It must be the strap. It's tighter on one side than the other. So what I'm going to do in this case is raise the whole cradle a little bit, climb up the ladder, put the screws on top, remove the strap, leave the pit jack in place, and then do the other side. At least I have a mounting point and the engine won't be able to fall anymore. That's for sure. Even if I don't tighten the screws all the way, I don't care, but at least it won't fall. The smile. The smile of victory. Look at that, it's screwed in. The spacers are in place and screwed in. I'm happy. Now we can see the height of the powertrain. It really resembles an SUV or a 4x4. I'm very happy. It's screwed in up there, secured in place. So now I can put a pit jack under the gearbox, undo the 4 gearbox bolts, lower the gearbox, put in my 4 mounts and screw the 4 mounts back in. And then the whole front end will be at its final height. All that's left is to make and install the mounts that will go here. But we'll talk about that later because it's going to be a pain. So we'll do everything else first. So now, gearbox mount. So, you get it? I have my 4 little sleeves that look like this. They're really just 4 little rods like this, sleeves, with a screw diameter in the center and a height of 40. Like all the spacers, since we're doing a 40mm lift, so now, bam, 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 the gearbox is done. I'm really happy. Bam, 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 bam. So obviously I can't put the original screws back in. You can guess why, for an obvious reason. So I ordered exactly the same screws, but actually 4 centimeters longer everywhere. Anyway, pa 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 pa. There we go, another one there. Pa 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 pa. And here I lower it. Wow, it looks bad. The problem is I can't put my pit jack in the middle because the lift is there, but I could put a block here to hold it from this spot. Yeah, let's do that. There we go. At least now it can't come crashing down. I'm tightening it. There, at least we have a wedge. Maybe I can put one here. If I lower it just a bit more. Yeah, it's getting straighter because now we're level everywhere, so that's cool. Yeah, well, it's actually going pretty well. Really cool. And as for the length with all the spacers and everything, I think it's working. So, very cool. All right, let's go. Let's put them all in. Honestly, I'm really happy right now. Ah, that's awesome. So now I should be able to remove the pit jack, which is useless now, and I'm really happy. The framing of this shot was phenomenal, but you got the idea. The job is done. Engine, gearbox, lowered, I'm really happy. As I told you, there's still this issue here, but that's not a big deal. It'll be sorted out later. In the meantime, I need to remove my front shock absorber to take my measurements above the shock here. Quite simply because actually, since the whole assembly, I don't know how to explain it, the assembly is like this. So the shock absorber is like this, so I can't pull it towards me here to put a spacer here. So actually, I'd rather take it apart, make my spacer, install my spacer on the shock absorber, put the shock absorber back on top, and then using the pit jack, lift the assembly back up to screw the shock absorber back in. I think it'll be much easier that way. And also, to install the spacer on the shock absorber, I'll have a lot more room. It looks like it's a pretty fine thread, like 10 by 100. So I think I'm going to make a cylindrical spacer, kind of like a sleeve that will be drilled and threaded to the diameter of the shock absorber rod. I'm going to screw that onto the shock absorber, which might be a real pain, and the spacer will be longer than the shock absorber rod, and it will also be threaded from the top. So I can bolt in my shock absorber instead of using a nut like before. I don't think it's a bad idea, and I don't have much choice anyway. So I removed the small stabilizer bar link, which lets me access the shock absorber mount. There you go. Now taking measurements will be easier. Do you understand? So basically the idea...
Don't bother. His idea is shit, because he's going to start talking nonsense for a good 15 minutes. For 900 seconds. He'll convince himself the shock absorber must be extended from the top. He'll even call Clayton the American for help. But in the end, he'll change his mind at the last minute and say it's way easier to extend it from the bottom. You could have seen it before, you damn...
Alright, quick update about my shock absorber. Instead of focusing on this part, we're going to focus on this part instead. Actually, it makes perfect sense. I went to see Ulysses Usimeka 26, and I said, man, it's annoying. Clayton gave me some ideas that are good but still a pain. I don't know how we can raise this shock absorber by 4 centimeters. Well, actually, it's a lot easier, and honestly, it even makes more sense. You see what I mean? Honestly, the idea is really simple. I just weld a flat bar here, drilled at 40, same on the other side, drilled at 40. Between the 2 brackets, I weld a flat bar for rigidity. That's it. We've saved 40 millimeters while keeping the bushing here and the bushing that's in the frame here. So, like the rest of the car, it works completely stock, and I think that's great.
Attention! In the next sequence, Anthony's mic acted up again. So it's recorded with the Sony Recorder's mic that costs 8 million euros, and there's some echo. Oh!
Alright, now I'm just waiting for the last few parts to finish my front axle, then I'll be able to focus on the rear axle and those famous shock absorbers with the hydraulic compensation mount. That needs to go. I printed this thing. This kind of test. Today's going to be a bad filming day. I can't speak, I don't know why. So, I'm going to follow this tutorial I found on the internet, on this site, to remove the automatic leveling system with a system... There's so much stuff everywhere, I'm working on 12 cars at the same time. But this is what we're interested in today. The new springs, the half moons, these bushings, I don't know, and 2 new rear shock absorbers. That's what we're interested in right now. And since today, for me, talking is a real struggle. Well, I'm not going to talk, I'll film, and if the voiceover wants to comment, it will comment. If the voice doesn't want to comment, it won't comment.
Watch out!
Before we start, I need to explain a couple of things or you won't understand. There's a weird hydraulic thing at the top of the cups. Here, we'll add an arrow in editing. That's a bleed screw. So I'm going to open the bleed screw, the leveling fluid will flow out, you have to let this thing drain completely. Then remove the screw completely and set it aside. Next, you need to put a jack under the lower control arm or lower the vehicle onto a block resting on the lower control arm in order to slightly compress the shock absorber and relieve it. Well, I just spent half an hour doing all that. So, disconnect all the hydraulic hoses and wait for everything to drain onto the ground. Then unscrew the shock absorber. I've spent 5 minutes trying to remove the car's shock absorber. The technical manual says you have to take off the brake caliper first to get the shock out from the side. But I don't feel like doing that, so I'm going to try to find another way to take it apart. But maybe removing the brake caliper would be much faster. Maybe that's why it's written in the technical manual. But everything is a pain on this car. And actually, a Jaguar shock absorber is heavy. You wouldn't think so, but it's not like a 106 this thing. I don't know what to do anymore. In the forum guide, they say that you spin it. Oh damn, yes. Yeah, you spin it and it comes out. I did it once, so I need to do it again. Hi, my condolences to the editor because the video is getting absolutely out of control. What just happened in the last few hours? Well, I completely took apart the entire hydraulic system of the rear shock absorbers. It actually wasn't very complicated, and honestly, the tutorial I showed you just before is amazing. It explains absolutely everything, and it's really great. So I removed both shock absorbers, the hose that connected the two shock absorbers, the hose that connected the right rear shock absorber to the front, and at the front, I replaced it just like it says in the tutorial. That hose by the bleed screw that was on the left rear shock absorber. Honestly, it was very easy. There's a height sensor you see that's attached there, so I removed that and it's great. So now I can get to unscrewing and lowering the rear axle to insert the few small shims. Excuse the mess as usual. These are the rear axle shims. It's going to be great. And in the meantime, I also received all the braided brake lines that will replace the original brake hoses. Why do that? Well, first, on a car like this, which is potentially going to do just about anything off-road, it's good to install braided brake lines because they don't expand with heat. So, you're much less likely to end up with a spongy brake pedal when you come into a turn, and therefore crash into the tree that's right in front of the turn. And well, I especially ordered them 4 centimeters longer. So, if you're interested, I'll put the link to where we ordered them in the description. You just give them the length you want and which fitting you want. For me, it's a male fitting, very simple, in M10x1. I asked them for 4 of those in the original measurements plus 4 centimeters quite simply. So that's one thing. Now we also need to install them, but for now we're going to have to remove the entire rear axle. And to do that, well, I've already done it on the other side. I'll show you what it looks like, basically the rear axle. I'm going to lower it by removing this control arm bracket, and the problem is that this control arm bracket was actually welded to the body. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I used a grinder on this, so it's now unwelded. We can unscrew, remove, and move it as needed. The other side remains welded. Here you can clearly see there's a nice weld bead at the top, and there's obviously exactly the same one at the back. I'll have to cut that off, and then, well, it's going to be pretty simple, you know. To lower the rear axle, we have these 2 trailing arm mounts to lower by 40, this to lower by 40, and these 2 points here to lower by 40 as well. Actually, I think that's all. It's suspended at the back by these 2 trailing arms and held at the front by these 3 big mounting points. That's it. I think it's going to be pretty easy. I just hope that the fuel and oil hoses and all that stuff will be long enough to handle lowering the rear axle, but I think we'll manage with what we have and it'll work out just fine. Once the axle is lowered, we can put the drive shaft back in and so on. I'm really happy. I'm happy. The second mount is off and now it's going to be pretty simple so you can understand a bit. I hope you saw how the control arm was attached, the one that went on here, right? So you have the axle support arm that goes here, which is attached here with a big bolt, and this thing was both welded and bolted to the body. And Ulysses made this part for me in double 40 millimeters thick. Bam, it's steel. I specifically wanted steel so I could weld my shims directly onto the car parts to have as few moving parts as possible, of course. And that way, the most strength possible. Now I'm going to put the pit jack under my rear axle, remove the second tie rod so I can play around with it to attach this thing. I don't have much to say, but I'm starting to feel a bit emotional because I'm starting to see, not the end, but the beginning of the end of the lift part of this project. And I admit that even if it doesn't look like it, because in the video everything seemed pretty smooth, it's a very difficult project for sure, but it's one that's close to my heart, and that's why I gladly accepted it when Konstantin offered it to me. But despite everything, I'm really fed up because it's very difficult. I didn't think it would be so technical to lift a Jaguar. Honestly, maybe I should have expected it. Is it going down? Yeah, it's going down. Well, it took me about 30 minutes, but I did it. And honestly, it looks awesome and really makes you want to see what's next. Look, here the tie rod is screwed in, and at the top the spacer is in place. Same thing on this side, obviously, I'm not completely clueless. So now you can start to see that the rear axle is dropping a little bit, and you can especially see that the lift, you can see, is tilting completely toward the back. So now, the goal is going to be to loosen 1, 2, 3, 4 screws. Exactly the same on this side. So I'm going to put my pit jack right here so I can lower only the front of the rear axle. After that, it's really going to be easy. This is going to be the most enjoyable part, you'll see. Because basically the plan is to put the pit jack at the back of the rear axle, and after that, it really does itself. So that's cool because I saw that we had a fuel leak, and by lowering the whole axle, we'll really have access to the fitting under the fuel tank, so next time we can do it without removing the rear axle, and that's pretty cool. Okay, so now, it must be 18 or 19 everywhere. We'll take the big sister from Milwaukee. I usually use the small one since it's light and easy on my arm, plus it takes things apart easily. Still, sometimes the big sister works better. We'll need to lower this plate by about 4 centimeters. So now I'm lowering everything. It works. Yeah, it works, damn. No, there's a big centering pin. I didn't expect that. And yeah, you see there, above my rear axle, near the big suspension bushings, you've got this huge conical pin, and that's not good for me because I had only planned for this. I'm not gonna lie, on the 406, I also dealt with pins like that. I just, The video is turning into an ad for Milwaukee. The gear is just too good. I didn't even use any cutting oil or anything. There must be 20 millimeters of steel, all the way through. I just used a big grinder everywhere. There's this part that comes in like this. Okay, there you go. Not tightened all the way. Here, a small socket. Here, a part. Yeah, it screws in. Damn, my measurements are spot on. Looks like I finally measured something right. Okay, that's tight. Small socket here. But I think this one won't line up. Because I didn't see it. But this one's a bit tilted. Not lined up at all, actually. Let's just say we'll remove it.
Instead of finding the solution to this problem, which may or may not be solved before the end of this video, Anthony decided to work on the wheels, because he found some steel rims.
Wait, I'll show you anyway. The original steel rims from the Jaguar XJ40. Why don't we keep the original aluminum rims? Because they're TRX size. Basically, it was a rim size that existed back then, which was measured in millimeters and not in inches. Because even though here in Europe we don't use inches and we use meters and millimeters and all that stuff, we still use inches for everything related to tire size, screen size, TV size, and area size. So anyway, all that to say that I couldn't put off-road tires on the original rims without making Konstantin spend 4 million euros. So we just found 16-inch steel rims. That's why the tires are 205/80 R16. Now, I'm not a tire installer at all, so please don't judge me on that. I only do it like twice a year, so I'm going to take it easy. I'm afraid of hitting myself in the head with this. It happened to me once. I came in really hard like this and hit myself in the head, and it wasn't fun at all. And now normally I have to spin it. Pah! Super handsome guy. It wasn't that hard. It's hard. Actually, the real problem with this kind of tire is this. You see, the tire is 40 centimeters out, like we're trying to make a damn stretched sidewall, but that's not the case. Maybe it'll seat right away, you know? I have no idea. I think that would just be pure luck. Yeah, no kidding. Oh shit, it's catching. No! Wow, this is going to look insane. Oh, I love it. key it popped into place at 1.5 bar and it looks watertight. We'll handle the balancing later. Who cares? I won't be driving at 110 kilometers per hour tomorrow anyway. I'm going to do all 4 wheels myself while you watch, and then, I'm really happy right now. I didn't expect it to be this easy. I think that before putting the other 3 tires on the rims, we're at least going to see what it looks like here, because I'm just too impatient and too excited to see what it's going to look like, honestly. Oh man, I can't wait. Oof, that's heavy. Okay. Come on, just a little effort. Damn, I got scared. Oh yeah, this is going to be crazy intense. Damn, let's put in 2 little studs just for fun. Oh damn. Yeah, it's really so cool. It suits him really well, and I feel like there won't even be that much need to cut it. Well, maybe just a little bit. I think that for the cutting, it's going to be around here, you see, just to trim, I don't know, 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters, depending on what's possible in the back, you know, but I think it's going to be really, really cool. The only problem with these rims is, well, the rim fits in way too much, and if we want a really off-road look, we're going to have to put on some crazy spacers. And the problem is, why, Anthony, are you putting on 205 tires? They're super narrow. Yeah, it really does look narrow like that. Well, it's simple. It's just that I couldn't find any rim in that size for this car that's any wider. What we maybe should have done is put on some spacers to change the bolt pattern so we could fit some more aggressive steel rims with more offset, wider ones, maybe from another vehicle, to put on bigger tires. But here I just worked with what I had, which is a Jaguar and a budget we're trying to keep as low as possible. Even so, the 4 tires cost about 400 bucks and the rims were cheap, maybe 100 euros total, so it's still reasonable. Yeah, well, guys or girls, whoever you are mounting tires all day, I don't want your life. Seriously, it's a crappy job. And it's not even particularly hot, it's probably 25, 26 degrees. I'm sweating like a pig, but it's done, and it really looks great. There we go, it looks a lot chunkier right away once it's mounted and inflated. I'm really happy. So next up, I'm going to modify the shock absorber, which I haven't done yet, but I won't be filming that for you. I'm going to make the little spaces for the rear shock absorbers. It's going to be modified. Anyway, basically a bunch of really annoying stuff, but I'll get back to you only when I have the parts from Ulysses to keep working on this completely crazy Jaguar. I just got back from my favorite machinist, who made some really interesting parts for me. Check this out. This is exactly the same thing as what I made with 3D printing that goes under the side member. So he shaved off a bit of the top because actually he had a block of a certain thickness, and to avoid using a block 4 times bigger, which would have cost me 4 times more, we just shaved off a bit. It's not a problem. In fact, it's better since it gives me a big bevel to load up with weld. I'm not going to fill the 2 centimeters with weld, but I can build it up easily and it'll sit right here. Just like that. Perfect. So I put my kind of plumb line back. You see, it really gives me the center of my hole. So I should place it. I don't know how to explain it to you, but basically it's going to help me center it properly with the hole in the right spot to get my big screw through. This large screw, by my calculations, should fit perfectly. Crap calculations. There's a problem. Yeah, I think there are some small burrs inside the hole. Alright, I'm going to scrape this thing a little bit and then it'll fit perfectly. I also got all the bushings needed for the rear shock absorber spaces, but we'll discuss that later. Let's finish this front end first. Honestly, I was complaining it didn't work, but I just used sandpaper with the Dremel and look. It's perfect, so look closely. You just have to do this. Now with my pit jack, I'm lifting. It's not going to work because of the plate that's behind my bushing. Alright, no, I'm fed up. I need to screw the gearbox mount back on, and then I just have to take care of the subframe. So I screwed the gearbox back on, and I came up with the idea to just lift the whole part with the pit jack. And actually, I made the part, I think, 40 or 50 millimeters wide. The problem is that I just picked a random width in the middle of my frame rail because I thought I don't care. Actually, no, I should have measured the width here from this shoulder to the same shoulder on the other side. Because now, if I want to be up against my bushing, this part has to be way more toward the inside of the car. But the problem is, if I go way toward the inside of the car, damn it, how is my bolt supposed to turn here? So actually, that's what's really frustrating about this project. There are so many things happening happening with this car that you have to think about before you even start working on it. And in this case, I didn't think about it, I didn't consider it, I'm fed up. And I'd really like the car to be able to get off the lift in 2 days. Right now, we're nowhere near that. We have no steering, nothing. It's a disaster. I like challenges, you know, but here, well, this time, it's my fault. Really, that machine part, if I had made it 2 centimeters wider, I wouldn't have had any problem. But I didn't think about it. That's the problem. I didn't think about it. Okay. Friday morning, I finished my 2 front shock absorbers. I'm really happy with the process. Basically, it was impossible to raise the shock absorber from the top, so I modified the shock absorber from the bottom. It's really simple. Basically, originally it's drilled all the way through, and the bushing is directly on the control arm, so there's no bushing at the bottom of the shock absorber, and that really worked out for me. In the sense that the holes that were there, I simply made a plate that I welded here out of 4mm sheet metal, drilled 4 centimeters further along, which just shifts my hole here by 4 centimeters. And then, to make up for the thickness, I welded a drilled spacer onto this bracket. And here I added reinforcement spacers to prevent these 2 brackets, which are really extended, from spreading apart. Honestly, I'm very happy. The big advantage of this method is that it was super easy to do. I just had to use the grinder a bit and the welding machine a bit, but it's easy. The big drawback is that if one day Konstantin breaks a shock absorber, well, it's a pain. You have to redo it. But the big advantage is that Konstantin actually lives on the other side of the country. If he ever breaks a shock absorber, that's not my problem. Just kidding. Konstantin, I know you're watching, that's not true. If you ever break a shock absorber, which is unlikely, just order one online, send it to me, and I'll redo the mounts and mail it back. That way the quality will be consistent, meaning mediocre. I'm going to reinstall my 2 front shock absorbers, then move on to the rear shocks, which I really don't feel like doing. That's the hydraulic conversion thing, man. I really don't want to do it. It fits. No. 2 hours have just passed. 2 hours during which I struggled with one of my 2 shock absorbers. There was one I put back together without any problem, and the other one, this one, cost me 2 hours of my time. Why? Because I'm an idiot. The cradle was hanging, I deliberately left it hanging to keep tension on the threading at the top. The idea was to make it easy, just use the impact wrench to go brrr with the nut. Obviously, you're not supposed to tighten a shock absorber that's hanging and supporting half of the front suspension with an impact wrench, because something terrible could happen. The nut can start spinning freely and completely strip the shock absorber rod. That's exactly what happened to me. Guess I should have greased it after all. Yeah, it's going to burn now. An industrial cordon bleu. But it's also because the heat is on high, damn. I'll add some water.
Anthony, you're not supposed to put water in a cordon bleu.
You're not supposed to put water in a cordon bleu. I don't have any oil here. Damn! Oh, it's up there. Damn, what a crappy life. Anyway, basically what happened with the threading on my shock absorber is that, well, it got messed up. No, it was really a shitty morning. It's about to be 1 o'clock, and I feel like I haven't done anything. So basically, if you want, the shock absorber was completely smooth. The rod, the threaded part, you know? And I guess if you look closely, you understand what happened. I brushed it, I ground it down to make it smooth, I loaded it up with weld. It must have been about 13 millimeters thick. So with my grinder, I managed to make roughly a 12 millimeter cylinder. So I tapped it in M12 by 175 to get an inner thread that's about 10 millimeters. Then I ground my threads to get a 10 millimeter cylinder, and then I tapped it again in M10 by 150. I have a shock absorber I can mount on my car. You might wonder, Anthony, why didn't you film it? It was interesting, but I was just fed up. I'll install my front shock absorbers first, then we'll handle the rear.
Once again, it's the official and unofficial voiceover stepping in to save this feature film from yet another silent sequence. You'll never know if the mic failed, or if Anthony forgot to turn it on. But since he's such an idiot, it was definitely just off. So, he just followed the Jaguar Club tutorial to replace the stupid hydro shock absorber with a regular one.
And it took him an hour. In the end, it was a lot more worrying than it was difficult. It's pretty easy to change your rear hydraulic shock absorbers, even if they're not great now. Back then, they were probably good. After 40 years of faithful service, they're useless now. That's it, admit it. Send me your cars and I'll tell you what you should buy. Bang bang, drop off the car and I'll do it in 25 minutes. Actually, I don't want to. How does the new one work? Or the old one? It ended up being complicated. The tutorial is good, but it's not made for this kit. So you have to think. You gotta think out of the box to make this work. I'll show you on the second one. So first, I started the operation by putting the spring compressor in the vise, way more practical, and then I put my spring in. So which level was it at? It must have been about like this. So after that, you tighten your spring compressor. I think I took 3 coils, yeah? And then, to avoid any trouble, you just tighten it. I wonder if I took an extra coil earlier, but I doubt it since it would have been much harder to put back in. I'm going to tighten this one. Do you like seeing my back? I don't want to move the camera. The Jaguar video is experimental. I talk to you with my back turned. If you've made it this far in the video, right, your back looks good. Let's continue. Your new shock absorber needs to be able to hold a spring. To do this, it's pretty easy. You take your 2 half-moon retainers. If you need the part numbers, do like I did. Go on Google and search the English forums. The British will explain absolutely everything you need to buy. Or you can do like I did. Go to a website dedicated to Jaguar parts and give them a call and they'll tell you which part number to buy. You do it and you realize it works. So in the end, they win every time. We'll spend the $600 to service the car with them because their customer service is responsive. I'm not advertising, but if you search for Jaguar parts, you'll find the site. Now the shock absorber is ready to receive its spring. Well, good for it, I guess. But first, we need to prepare the upper part. Poof, I'll show you. Boot, washer, then big bushing on top. I'm unsure about the order, but I'll make it work. Place the small sleeve in the bushing around the shock absorber rod. This video will be very long, but I don't mind. So then boom, boot into the shock absorber, boom, and the foam, you just stick it in there. And you just set it in place. Beautiful. Then you take a stainless steel tube, very important, 63 millimeters, to wedge your shock absorber so it doesn't drop down. No, but it's technical. You realize it's time to put the top mount on, but it's still here, so you have to undo everything you just assembled to install it. Damn. Hey, the magic of cinema. It's done. I put this back here. I adjust my stainless steel tube here. I leave this straight. It gives me a reference point. The top mount has an orientation. Since it's not like a front cup that turns thanks to a bearing, here it's fixed. Once you tighten it in the wrong position, it's tightened in the wrong position. I noticed there was an offset of a few degrees on the top mount I tightened because, well, it moves when you tighten it, but it's not a big deal. I think that once the top mount is screwed into the body, with a big bar or a large screwdriver or something, I'll be able to put some force on the shock to turn it slightly. It's not a big deal. The cup has just been removed. So here, you pay attention to the orientation of the top mount, like I said. You know, I don't think it has to be precise to the millimeter. The top mount will settle into place on its own. So now everything is in place. You hold the top mount against your chest. You grab this foam that you put there, that you hold with your chest. It hurts. Then you put the big washer that sandwiches everything together, and then you hold everything with your chest and put on the nut. And normally, just by tightening the nut with your finger, everything should pretty much stay in place. Perfect. Is what I did there centered? Honestly, it's pretty close. Not bad. Open end wrench. You tighten. Now I'm going to explain to you how to raise the rear shock absorbers. I've been thinking about it for 3 weeks and I'm happy to finally be able to start making it. As for the rear lift, there were several ways to look at it. The first way, of course, was to put a spacer between the shock absorber and the body, like with the subframes and so on, basically do it the same way. The problem is, I don't know if you can see it, but this mount really has a weird shape. You see, it would require cutting a 40mm thick metal plate that matches this exact shape. There's a shape in the middle that looks more like an oval than a circle, and it's really frustrating. That was really the original idea, and the second idea was, no, I don't know what I'm saying, there isn't a second idea, really that was the only idea I had. The issue is that having a plate cut like that in 40mm thickness just isn't possible. I think the maximum you can cut with a laser or water jet or whatever is 20mm or 25mm, so that means you would have had to make 4 spaces of 20mm, weld them together, weld them onto the shock absorbers, and so on and so on. Very expensive, very time consuming, and here the goal is to do it as simply and as cheaply as possible on this car. So, the second idea is to make a spacer myself with whatever I have on hand, and that's what we're going to do. I asked Ulysses to prepare 4 bushings per shock absorber for me, to be precise. And these bushings, I'm gonna put them in each screw hole, bam, 1, 2, 3, 4, to allow me to screw the shock absorber 4 centimeters lower. The problem is that with impacts, pressure, and so on, the car will only be supported on these 4 contact points. It's like a fakir's bed of nails, you know what I mean? If you put just one nail and step on it, the nail goes into your foot, it's exactly the same here. So, the goal will be to position these 4 sockets here on the shock absorber mount, and then, between each socket, weld flat iron bars that are 40 millimeters high. Just to make something that applies pressure everywhere. Sure, we won't have the same contact surface as the original, because originally you can see everywhere it's relatively clean on the shock absorber, that's where the contact area was. But it'll still be better than just 4 sleeves screwed in like that. In the meantime, I'm going to fit my shock absorber onto the car, screw in the sleeves, tack the sleeves onto the shock absorber so they stay in place and don't move. Once everything's set, I'll weld my flat bars onto the vise in the workbench. It's actually the other way around. Ah, look, I ground down the top of the top mount. That way, I'll be able to tack it directly onto the body. Why don't I tack the sleeves on the ground? Because I don't know how well the nuts were welded onto the body, you see. I want it to be lined up. I could weld the sleeves lined up with the holes, but even a millimeter off would be a hassle. I'd need the drill, etc. This way, I'm sure it's perfectly lined up. Everything will be tight and perfect, you know what I mean? And now that it's raised, it shouldn't be too complicated. Yeah, now we should have a bit more space, that's a good thing. This looks about right, doesn't it? We're lined up with the hole, that must be it. Oh man, it's heavy. It's going to be tricky to drop the sleeves in the right spot. Man, also, I need to grind the sleeves since they're not flat. I'll have to grind a corner off each one every time. Will you stay here if I leave you like this? Great, I'll be back soon. It's not much, but I gave each of them a little bevel, you see? It's so cute, I really love it, so now it should fit pretty much perfectly. Ah, damn, it's the thread that's messed up. It's a pain in the ass. Oh damn, you too? That's not possible. I mean, they're not messed up, they're just full of rust, that's all. Damn, this is tough. Oh man, I'm going to mess up the threading. Why aren't you running a die through it? It's really pissing me off. Damn, I've got a metal shaving in my finger. Everything's fine. No, but seriously, other than that, everything's fine. Honestly, you can't imagine how annoying everything is on this car. Actually, it's the modifications that are annoying. I don't even know what working on a Jaguar is like. The modifications I came up with were really poorly thought out. There you go, you heard it. I'll only say it once in the video. On the other hand, well, now the 4 spacers are screwed in place. So of course later on, we'll add washers and so on. Everything will be properly assembled. That was a real pain in the ass to fix because it's really under tension, just like Mireille's thong 5 minutes before you. Get her into your sports car and it's really tough, even mentally. It's getting on my nerves, but things are moving forward. It takes a crazy amount of time, but it's moving forward. So what I suggest is that I don't film the other side. And actually, I just thought of something. I thought of 2 things. First, tack this in place. Yes, that's a great idea. Well done, Anthony. But it's a crappy idea because actually you can't see it from here. But when you get under the car, for example, this hose here, that's a fuel hose. You see, it's very close to where I'm going to weld. It's like 2 centimeters from where I'm going to weld. So in itself, it's already a bad idea. But it's an even worse idea when you know that this is a gasoline stain. And the leak is right here. There you go. I think now you get where the problem is. The leak is here, but the shims are there. Let's avoid welding, okay? Because if a spark flies from here to there, I think I'd be blown out of the workshop. Or out of human existence altogether. So I don't know. There you go. That was the first thing. The second thing I thought of is that actually almost all the shims are on the car now. The front cradle shim is still missing. So actually, if in, I don't know, sometime from now I've installed the last shock absorber, well actually I can put all 4 wheels on the Jaguar and set it down on the ground. Without the axle shims, the axle or anything else, we'll see the ground clearance gained. We'll be able to see if the rear tires fit inside the rear fenders. We'll be able to see a lot of things that will either motivate me for the rest of the video or make me want to die. But at least we'll have seen it. Yeah, I can't wait. Once again, 2.5 hours later. The days are starting to get a bit long, and on top of that, I don't even realize what time it is anymore because the sun sets later and later. I'm not telling you anything new. I learned that in 5th grade. The days are getting longer. I tinkered with the drive shaft bearing support. Because actually, yeah, it's good. I made some shims, some sleeves. But the problem is, it was actually on an angled support. Except that when you have an angled hole and you drill straight, your original hole just ends up lower. Anyway, I think you get what I'm trying to say. So I had to drill. I had to do a bunch of really annoying things. Calculate stuff and things. It's temporary, okay? It'll work fine for now. So right now, we have 4 shock absorbers mounted on the car. Nothing is welded, nothing is reinforced. They're really just screwed on like that to the body. I'm fed up, I had a bad day, nothing went as planned. So I want to do something nice for myself. I want to lift my spirits. I'm going to put the 4 wheels on the car. They're right there, they're looking at me, they're waiting for me. I really need to treat myself to this. I'm still missing those famous brackets that need to be welded. Normally, Ulysses should make them for me very soon. He made them for me, but I'm still missing the small sleeves to fix my bad measurement. Other than that, I just have the steering rack left. And that will be the big theme for tomorrow. I have a few ideas. Is it doable? I have no idea, but I do have some ideas. And that's pretty cool, because honestly, there's not much left that I'm missing. I also don't have a brake hose. I cut one. I took another one apart. I don't know what I did or why or how. But anyway, let's say the goal of the video will be to put 2 brake hoses in the front, bleed the brakes, restart the car, because I took apart a bunch of things on the engine to get to some of the subframe bolts and so on. Take the car out of the workshop to admire it in daylight. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Let's put the wheels on. Honestly, I'm happy. Really, very happy. I won't talk for 25 minutes. Still, you don't realize how much work this is. When I agreed, I didn't know it would be so much work. I'm starting to feel happy now. I had to do it. Wow. Oh damn, it's huge. Honestly, I'll admit it, I'm proud of myself. It wasn't a sure thing, you know? At that point, in terms of motivation, in terms of mindset, it was really tough. Currently, I'm experiencing many changes and questions in my life, including a new professional approach. Beyond what you see, much more is happening. So that's why I'm not making a lot of videos. And right now, yeah, I've been a bit mentally drained. I'm not saying this to complain, it's just, this is my YouTube channel. I do what I want. If I want to cook, I cook. If I want to talk about my well-being, I do. In this case, I wasn't doing well. The Jaguar stressed me out because Konstantin has waited months for his Jaguar. But yeah, there was the RS3 for drifting. What a crazy thing, damn. What a banger. There are a lot of things, personal life, professional life, that kept me from making progress on the Jaguar like I wanted. That was part of what was making me feel bad, so to speak. Seeing that right behind me tonight makes me feel great. Incredible. I think it's day 12 or 13 spent on the Jaguar. I'm really happy. You can see that I have a lot more energy than yesterday because I realized all the work that had been done on the car. It doesn't look like it, I'll say it again, it really doesn't look like there's been as much work on the car as I'm telling you, but I'm not showing you everything. Otherwise the video would be, I was going to say, 45 minutes long. The video will clearly be at least 45 minutes, which is too long. Today, the main focus is getting steering. As I showed you earlier, rack splines. Click, click, yes, but right now, click, click, nothing. Well, makes sense. There's 4 centimeters between the two. Today's goal is to solve this so I can get the car out. The wheels just need to turn. The guy is talking nonsense. 2 hours have passed.
Yeah, Anthony, your videos lack enough details.
You really want to see me use a reciprocating saw and an angle grinder for 2 hours. Nobody wants to see that. And in the end, the technique I found to move my steering column is really perfect. Actually, the steering column went through the bulkhead, through the metal, the firewall, whatever you want to call it, and it went straight into the rack. And so, to go through the bulkhead, there was a kind of round hole with a sort of boot to seal that connection so that water, dust, sand, and so on couldn't get into the cabin. You can imagine that. Of course, I got rid of that little seal. It was completely gone. I tore it into 15 pieces to take it out, and then I could see the problem a bit better. So that was the problem. My steering column went right through the middle of that hole, and so even when it hit the bottom of the hole, I couldn't lower it. So the plan was pretty simple. I cut everything outside and inside the car, so now I can do whatever I want with the steering column. The main advantage is we're now very close to our rack and pinion. And actually, we even have an elbow here that almost lets us reach the splines, and that's really cool. But we're still going to have to extend this rod a little bit because even by adjusting it up and down, we'll never be able to reach all the way to tighten the original screw here. So the plan now is to cut our steering column here, and I'm going to weld a small pin that I took from the steering column of the 505. It's 3 centimeters long. I beveled both sides. I'll be able to weld this directly on the workbench for the part that goes into the steering rack. rack, but for the upper part, I'll have to weld it in place on the car. It's not a big deal because it's not a mechanical part that's going to have huge stresses. I mean, it's not a drive shaft or a CV joint or a suspension or anything like that. Here, we're just going to turn the steering wheel. Plus, we have power steering. So we're not going to break the welds with our little human arms, you know what I mean? So, it doesn't seem too bad to me. Now, I'll have to cut the steering column. That's going to be a bit annoying. I'll show you after a quick cut with the reciprocating saw. Honestly, after cleaning up the cut, it's actually pretty straight. I'm actually really proud of myself. So now it's time for the welding operation. I ended up removing this part from the section attached to the steering wheel, where the rod connects directly from the steering wheel. I chose this method because welding under the car would have been crooked. Whereas here, if I handle it well and clamp it properly, it'll be welded straight and perfect and we'll just have the original column 3 centimeters longer. And honestly, that's way better. So here, I've screwed the steering column back under the steering wheel, and now we're finally going to go under the car to see if it fits into the thing's hole. Honestly, with a bit of luck, it'll work. It doesn't fit. It really doesn't fit at all. Is it possible that it's too long?
Yet another scare caused by Anthony's carelessness in this video. He thought he had made the column too long, but actually, no. In the end, he just lowered the rack.
You see, I lowered it by a few millimeters on the left and right just to have a bit of range. And now I think if I push a little, it should... well, there you go. Now all that's left is to tighten it and put the screw back in. And here we have a steering rack. Here, I've screwed my rack back in. So I think given where the steering wheel is, we'll need to do a little alignment because I probably didn't put the splines exactly in line. But if I turn the steering wheel, we have steering. Now the steering is super stiff. Obviously because first the tires are new and second, well, tires like these weigh a ton. I'm going to lift the car up a bit and that way we'll start to see where it's rubbing, scraping. I don't even know. I'm losing my French here. I'm fed up. But you know it fits. I'm at full lock. It seems to clear on this side. I was about to say I'll check the drive shafts. It's a rear wheel drive car, so yeah, that's a problem. It's fine while the car is lifted, but once it's back down, I think problems will arise. It's very close to the body, inside the wheel when fully turned. In the front, it doesn't matter since we can cut it, nothing should be in the way. Yeah, the bumper and all that, it's completely in the way. But that, we don't care at all. That's not a problem because this whole lower part here is going to be removed. The fender liner, all the plastics, that's going to go. But yeah, in the back, that worries me a bit more. Look, you see, that's what I'm talking about, this spot here. It's not very far, and I think when we lower the car, it should touch. Or at least it should be pretty close to touching. But anyway, everything like the sway bar, control arm, steering, all that, it fits without any problem, and that's really cool. Yeah, I'm really happy.
The next day!
Guys, normally we're getting to the final day of work. Today, brake hose. That means once I've changed all 4 brake hoses and bled the brakes, the car should be able to move on its own to get out of the workshop. Actually, no, damn. Every time I forget, I'm always missing that damn welded bracket because you see, I can't really get out like this. It's Sunday. Ulysses from Usimeka told me tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, you come to the workshop, you pick it up, you finish your mess. Yeah, we'll do what he says. So I'm still going to install the brake hoses, but I won't take the car out. There you go. Now that's an off-road car. An off-road car doesn't have a bumper. You can see the mechanical bits, you can see the big wheels, you can see the driver's big balls. We're getting there. The only problem is that, well, first of all, my mind is... It went over there. I was changing all the hoses. So now we have all 4 braided brake lines installed. I put everything back together perfectly with the original nuts. I put grease and everything. Beautiful. I figured, since it's raised, I'd remove the bumper. The issue is, the windshield washer reservoir is behind it on one side. On the other side, I think it's the AC receiver dryer. So, after checking, that little tank there, which is under the front bumper of the car, is the fuel tank canister. It's an anti-pollution system. If I can remove it, well, it's going to be removed. That's it. Second thing, I'm now going to bleed the brake fluid. So, a complete bleed, of course. As usual, I do this with my little device, the Easy Bleed. It works really well. I do it with the wheel, I put the wheel on the engine. That way, the pressure from the wheel through the valve puts the brake reservoir under pressure. And then, well, I'm going to open the bleed screws one by one, starting with the one that's farthest from the ABS unit. So the ABS unit is on the passenger side. So, you have to start with the rear driver's side wheel, then the other rear wheel, then this one, and then that one. And of course, we're going to use motor fluid. Now, I can't remember where I put it. Here it is. Given the color of this stuff, we're going to start with a basic DOT 4, and if Konstantin knows he's going to mess around, there's also the RBF 600 range, and I think there's even something crazier now. This range can handle high temperatures, sudden changes, and more. It's also better for maintaining pedal feel over time. We'll use this for a full flush, which will be perfect. The bleeding is done. The car now has brakes that are theoretically functional. I haven't tried them, but in theory, well, they work. Today, I'm very happy. Normally, this is the final day of filming for this first episode about this Jaguar, which will be the first episode of a huge series of 2 episodes. The goal at the end of this episode is to be able to leave the workshop with the car, which will be raised up a bit so we can admire how it looks. Anyway, Ulysses has finished the little sockets that will be welded onto our machine parts. Look at this. Yeah, it's as simple as that. And of course, it will be welded like this. So, that's what I'm about to do right now. I'm going to make a beautiful weld bead all around here. Really solid, really strong. And then here, on the part that sticks out, with my little grinder, I'll make a small flat surface so that the whole thing can fit perfectly under my frame rail so I can weld it. We'll pick up again once these damn things are welded.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the last voiceover bits in this never-ending film. The footage you're seeing right now is from the biggest failure in the video. A mental breakdown, as they'd say in English. After welding the socket onto the spacer, Anthony tried to weld it as planned. But since we're on the Anthony Perrier PDLV channel, nothing is planned, and nothing goes as planned.
I can't take it anymore. Oof! Last night, around 9 or 10, there was another work stoppage because the welding machine was malfunctioning. The welds were terrible and I couldn't do it. It was really getting to me, so I decided to stop and let it go. Sometimes you just have to admit defeat, and that's okay. I think that behind the camera, or in front of your screen, whatever, it's not always obvious what all this involves. But the video has to come out. The car has to get out of here. Konstantin needs to get his car back. That way, well, he can enjoy it. And for me, well, it gives me more space in the workshop, and the other projects need to move forward. I'm really happy to be working on this Jaguar, but still, the videos have to come out, because videos are how I make a living, and without that income, I can't make videos for you. Because actually, well, the money goes around in a circle, you know? Wow, he really knows how to do product placement, he's lining his pockets. No, it all goes back into the cars. When I get 1,000 or 2,000 euros from a sponsor, it goes right back into a car immediately. Because, maybe you don't really realize it, but parts add up really fast on cars. I'm telling you this because the 505 is behind me. Right now, I'm at my wit's end. This morning, I picked up Clayton's truck. He's helping me with the 505 project and other projects as well. Especially thanks to his CAD drafting and welding skills. So anyway, all that to say, he told me, don't worry bro, I'm coming, I'll help you out. And sometimes it's really cool to know how to accept a helping hand. Because at that point, my nerves were really on edge with this car. And yet, I love this project, you know? But since the beginning, I feel like this Jaguar is messing with me and keeps throwing obstacles in my way. And I'm really fed up. So I'm going to take the opportunity to clean up a bit while Clayton gets here. Because right now, even I can't work in conditions like this. I mean, if I came to this garage, it's precisely so I wouldn't have to work in the dirt anymore. You see, so I'm going to clean everything up, put everything away, but at least Clayton is coming this morning. And we'll take care of this together in good conditions. I can't take it anymore. I'm defeated. You win, huh? Well played. Well played, Mango. I don't know what it is.
work, no pleasure. I ain't here to make friends, big stepper. Hey, bad guy, Heath Ledger. Ready for wherever, I'll be front and center. Don't fly too close to the sun, your body chopped up by propellers. Came in arrogant, but left out in a stretcher. The comparison, y'all know y'all couldn't replicate it. Chilling in the desert, I'm good under pressure. Stick around, let me hold it down, look at what we found. That's a crown on me, wearing proud, but what they was talking about.
I was absolutely fed up with this car, really fed up. You've probably heard it 18 times, maybe even more in the video. A big thank you for offering me your help.
Yeah, no problem.
Never again will I agree to do any work on a Jaguar, not even any kind of mechanical intervention. I won't even look at them in the street anymore. Honestly, it's not really the car's fault, it's just a whole mess. So basically, this is welded beautifully, okay? Well, I'm not sure if the crappy welds weren't my fault or my welding machine's fault. Clayton, who welds professionally, struggled even more than I did, but his talent makes up for it. We also modified this part. The modification is almost invisible. It's barely noticeable. You can't tell at all where it was cut and reinforced. So that'll work just fine. The idea now is to put these parts back together. Everything is welded, everything is finished except for the reinforcements at the back, which will be welded later, and then we'll finally be able to set it on its wheels. Wow, I'm really super happy. Here you can really see the 4 centimeters of lift at this spot.
Don't zoom in too much, don't zoom in too much, please.
Let's go. We'll get back to you. As soon as it's time to put the car on the ground, that's it. It's the ultimate landing. We're going to see the real height of the front suspension, because before, since there was a little bit of play, maybe the height wasn't perfect. This time we'll lower the car, remove the arms, and that will be its actual final height. Honestly, I'm not even sure a Jaguar F-Pace has that much ground clearance. You know, those SUVs, you see the SUVs? I'm talking to you, Benoit, answer me. Honestly, I'm really happy. So, the only thing, and I can show you now that the arms are gone, is that at the back, the shock absorber is new. Man, it's stiff at the back, and up front, imagine how badly the car will handle. There's definitely a big difference, so I'm not sure. Well, this time, it's the end. This is the last moment of filming for this episode. I'm glad to have made it this far, really. Rarely has a car given me so much trouble and so many difficulties, but it's not really the car's fault. As I said throughout the episode, it's more about lifting a Jaguar, which is a bit of a crazy idea. Honestly, I'm really glad I did this thing. I'm really happy to see it up in the air. I'm not saying it's functional yet, since I haven't taken it off the lift or know how it'll be. Maybe it'll explode when I take it out of the garage. I have no idea. Still, I'm really happy with the result. Big thanks to Clay and Val for their help. For welding those kinds of reinforcements onto the front crossmember, so that's done. I really just have the rear left to reinforce. I also made minor changes to the airbox mounts and the mounts for the pipe to the throttle body, since the engine was lowered by 40 but the airbox mounts weren't. So, I had to do a little something with some small pipes. I managed, it went really well. Now it's time to start the car. And just as a reminder, the exhaust system is behind the car. It's not installed at all anymore. Only the catalytic converter is left on the car. I think it's going to make a hell of a noise. Here we go then, time to take it off the lift. That's awesome. It rolls. Ha ha ha. Oh, look at the front of that car. It's huge. Shit, I was thinking it smelled a bit like soap. I must have hit it a little by accident. Damn, yes, of course. I had been impatiently waiting for that moment, which is why I accepted this project. It was to see a damn unique Jaguar in my garden. And I'm really super happy. I hope that Konstantin, the car designer, will also be just as thrilled to see the result of this car. So, of course, this is the end of episode 1. I'm preparing a second episode for you that will be much more chill. It's going to be a bit of mechanical maintenance, doing a major overhaul, and so on. It's also going to be about cutting the fenders, adding some fender flares, adding spacers, really making it look like an off-roader, finishing up its rugged look, maybe installing a roof rack depending on the budget we have left, adding some spotlights. I think it's going to be super cool. It's going to be all about the finishing touches, and of course there will be the test drive. It's not going to be a road test, it's going to be a test on trails, on tracks, and I'm really happy about it. So, once again, a huge thank you for watching this video. If you want to see more on this Jaguar, subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is just the beginning and the wild projects are only starting. And very soon on the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see the Peugeot 505 with the famous Mercedes OM 606 for its first startup. I'm really happy to share this project with you and see it through together. It was just a small project in between. It was supposed to be a simple little project, just to be able to breathe, to take a break from the stress and the millions of questions that the 505 brings up for me. In the end, it wasn't at all what I expected. It was much harder than I could have imagined. But for now, here we are with a Jaguar, an off-road Jaguar XJ40, and that makes me really happy. I'm freaking happy. Thanks for following these adventures. Big hugs to all of you. And see you very soon for the 505 OM 606, the startup.